Hi, my name is Rich Bergeman. I've been a photographer for 40-some years, mostly focusing on images of things past. I'm interested in historical subjects, and and this is my second time I've been in White Lotus Gallery. I think 2014 I was in a show called The Golden West, and I'm very happy to be invited back to be in this show in good company. So I'm in good company here in this show. I have 3 pictures in this show. They're all infrared photographs printed in archival pigment ink. And I'd like to talk a little bit about each one. This one is this was a picture of the Sod House Ranch built by Peter French, the cattle baron of Eastern Oregon, back in the 1800s. It's a good example of the kind of things I've been doing for a while, part of a series I call The Vanishing West. And that has to do with homesteads and ghost towns and early settlements from the frontier days on the eastern side of Oregon, on the eastern side of Washington. This is a site in the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge that is maintained well by the Malheur Refuge people. It's a picture of the long barn, or one of the long barns, the northern long barn of the Peter French spread on the northern end of his spread. This is a picture of Mount McLaughlin in southern Oregon, behind a long abandoned lumber mill. I call it Snowy Butte because that's what early settlers in southern Oregon called it back then in the 1800s. This is from my series called The Land Remembers, which is about landscapes associated with the Rogue River Indian Wars in 1850 to 1855. This particular site is important not only because Mount McLaughlin is an icon like Mount Hood is to Portland. Mount McLaughlin is an icon of southern Oregonians. But it's also significant because of the role it played in the wars. A stream comes off this side of the mountain called Little Butte Creek and enters into the Rogue River a little behind my camera position. And it's at that site where the Little Butte Creek runs into the Rogue River where the massacre occurred that started the bloodiest phase of the Rogue River Wars in 1855, where an Indian village was attacked in the early morning by some miners out of Jacksonville. And mostly men, women, and older men, women, and children were killed. And when the Braves got back from being out hunting the next day, they were not happy, and it was kind of like the last straw for them. And they went on a rampage down the Rogue River, killing whoever they ran across and burning cabins, and essentially making such a uproar that the U.S. Army finally stepped in, and it made it a much more engaged war as opposed to a bunch of skirmishes that had been going on for years. Anyway, I did a project photographing sites having to do with where things happened during that war about 2-3 years ago, a long 2 to 3 year project. And this is one of the pictures from that project. Well, the other image I have in the show is from the Lansu Chinese Garden in Portland. This is kind of a back corner of the garden. And more than any of the other, it's from a series I call Invisible Gardens, which are infrared photographs of public gardens and parks that I sort of do on, I build into that series on and off lately. I think this probably shows what an infrared photograph does to a scene, more so than the other two, even though they're all done with an infrared camera. If this were a regular black and white photograph, these different shades of green plants that are here, the trees and this interesting plant here, they'd all be different shades of gray, and the pagoda would be a dark gray. Well, in infrared, plants reflect a lot of infrared light, so they come out in various tones of high key values. changing the mood entirely of the scene, I think, making it seem like it's kind of an other world, maybe a little surrealistic even. And I've really fallen in love with that look. I like what it does to landscapes, although sometimes it can be a little overpowering and too different, you know. But I like, on the other two images in the show, it's kind of subtle. You don't really notice what it's doing. Because other things infrared does, is it darkens the blue sky dramatically, makes skies much more interesting, and it darkens the surfaces of water and rocks and things that are inanimate. So the contrast level changes quite a bit. And I don't want to get all technical or anything, but briefly, an infrared photograph is made one of two ways. You either put infrared film in your camera, and that's not so common these days anymore, or you change your digital camera so it can record infrared light. And that's a simple process because all digital cameras have a filter in them to block infrared light because their sensors can see it, even though our eyes can't. They have a filter in to block it so that it doesn't mess up a normal photograph. You take that filter out, replace it with a filter that blocks the visible range of light, and what you get is the light reflection off subjects that falls within the infrared spectrum, which is called the lower infrared, which is just above the visible spectrum to the human eye. Some animals can see infrared, but humans can't see much higher than 700 nanometers. And the infrared spectrum is about 720 to 900 some nanometers, and so you're letting your camera see something that you physically can't see when you're taking the photograph. And I get used to it. I get used to expecting what's going to happen, but I'm often surprised at what ends up occurring, and often pleasantly surprised. It has kind of a hauntingly beautiful quality, I think. And since I do a lot of photography of old things and the ghosts of our past, so to speak, it seems appropriate to use a medium that photographs something we can't see, something that's invisible. So those are the three pictures I have here, and I hope you can stop by the gallery and take a look at them.